Good evening, everybody. The content of this presentation is proprietary and confidential information of the Florida Firefighter Safety and Health Collaborative. It is not intended to be distributed by any party without the written consent of a collaborative member. Attendees should note that the educational component of this session is being recorded and will be published on our YouTube page. To maintain complete confidentiality, an announcement will be made before the recording begins, and only the presenter will be identified during the recording. Therefore, to ensure your privacy, all attendees are asked to mute their microphones until an announcement is made that the recording is complete. Presentations are intended for educational purposes only and do not replace independent professional judgment. The ideas expressed in this presentation are the professional opinion of the presenter and do not necessarily represent those of the Florida Firefighter Safety and Health Collaborative or its constituents. Before acting on any of the information presented, attendees should consider the appropriateness of the information as it pertains to their individual situation and seek independent professional advice should any concerns arise. If you or anyone you know are in or are believed to be or perceived to be a situation that is or may become harmful, please reach out to the National Suicide Prevention Hotline at 1-800-273-8255 or through their website, suicidepreventionhotline.org, or call 911 in the event of an emergency. That said, I'm going to step aside and welcome one of our fire families, the Toomeys. Allow you to introduce yourself and take us away on an evening of ugly sweaters and relaxation.
All right.
Start with a kiss. In honor of it being firefighter family night, thought it'd be nice to start with a kiss.
Yes.
We all need a little bit more love in this life right now. We're living through this crazy world. And I want to just start. Thank you, Michelle. Thanks for this awesome opportunity to be with you guys tonight. I'm Jacqueline, and this is Sean, my husband. He's a Denver firefighter. And we are the co-founders of First Responder Sleep Recovery. We teach across the United States and in Canada. I just got back from a month in Saskatchewan teaching fire and police out there. But first I just want to say and acknowledge that we've been through this tremendous year and a half, almost 2 years. And you guys, I congratulate you for not only getting through it, but showing up tonight to prioritizing your health, your partner's health. And we just want to really acknowledge and recognize that. And because Michelle mentioned that she does a little gratitude practice, I thought before we even get into our presentation on sleep, I thought we might just do a little centering to let go of, we've all arrived from different events, stuff, all the crap that we deal with on the day-to-day. So I thought we might just do a centering practice to get started. Are you guys open to that? Yes? Okay, excellent. So wherever you are, if you're on a couch, kick back. If you're in a chair, just get yourself comfortable. Can you scoot over just a tiny bit here? Okay. So wherever you are in your house, in your office, wherever it is, just get yourself in a comfortable position. We're just going to take a moment to center ourselves, to let go of our day so that we can enter this space and time together fresh and present. So just put your feet flat on the ground, or if you're laying down, just feel the connection of the heels onto the support beneath you. And just spreading the toes and just really feeling sensation into the feet. And just feeling the sensation of the body. Grounding down, feeling gravity's pull. And just notice how you have arrived. Acknowledging what has occurred in this day, and then just giving yourself permission to exhale, to release, and to just feel into your body, switching from thinking and doing all of the different things that have occurred in this day, and just switching, consciously switching into feeling sensation in the body. Feeling through the legs, noticing the heaviness or the lightness. Perhaps there's a sensation that is calling your attention. Don't judge it, but just simply be aware of the legs. Become aware and bring attention to your hips. Notice any sensation there. Draw your attention to the belly and notice if the belly is spacious or notice if the belly is tight. Noticing the breath flowing in and out of the chest. Notice the weight of the arms. Now bring attention to your neck and head. And on your next exhale, simply release the muscles of the face downward. Open and close your jaw. Just opening and closing the jaw once or twice to release any tension there. And just focus your attention inward on the breath. And just take 3 slow and steady breaths. With each exhale, releasing the day and just welcoming a sense of presence into this moment. Letting go of all tensions in the body. Just noticing the breath flowing in and out. And after your 3rd breath, just noticing the sounds around you. Not judging the sounds, just noticing the sounds and noticing any smell or taste, noticing touch, and just awakening all the senses to be present here and making a commitment to just setting aside all of our to-dos for later and just being completely present for this experience and time together. And just bringing awareness or even a hand to your heart and just feeling a little bit of gratitude that we get this time, this space, this crazy technology called Zoom, that we can be across the country and spend a little time and be present together. And despite what's going on in the world, that we can still celebrate life. We can still take a moment for joy, for learning, for support, being in connection with one another. And just breathing directly into your heart center, feeling that gratitude as a felt sensation, not something of the mind, but a felt sensation in the body. And just take a breath directly into your heart. What can you be grateful for right here, right now? Maybe it's your breath, your partner, your body, your job, your fur babies, your children, whatever it is, just take a moment and just be with that. Taking 3 slow, deep breaths, just focusing on the gratitude in your heart. And then slowly, when you feel ready, opening your eyes, coming into this time together with an open mind, open heart, and we will get to this exciting experience that is otherwise known as first responder sleep recovery, but this is all about family support. And I just wanted to actually start with a quick introduction with, let's see if I could pull it up really quick. I actually had written this article for spouses that you're all going to receive. Let me see, it's right here. And we'll welcome our dog. She's making some sounds here. We're going to welcome her into the meeting. Okay, so just to introduce this idea, I'm just going to read you the first paragraph of this article that you'll all have access to. So, dear first responder spouse, has your husband or wife ever come home and you thought a bear walked through the door? Or wondered, who is this person? The job has hardened them. Or I don't even recognize this person anymore. Don't worry, you are not alone. We are in this together. It is different being in a relationship with a first responder. I understand, and I'm a firefighter wife too. So the good news is that the bear isn't your husband or wife at all. Their mood isn't reflective of who they are, and it is most likely a chemical imbalance that resulted from a sleepless, stressful night while they were on shift. Fortunately, these chemicals known as neurotransmitters can be balanced. With a little work and commitment, your husband or wife will return to the person you first fell in love with. So that is just the introduction to this article that I wrote, really to just give a glimpse into the neuroscience that happens when whether we are sleep deprived or our partners are sleep deprived. And not only is there a chemical change in the brain, but the actual architecture of the brain changes as well. So before we get into the actual science and solutions of what could be supportive at home and for your partner on shift, I would first love to hear in the chat, like popcorn style, please just type in, what does sleep mean to you? Okay, John and Amy say rest and recovery, relaxation, a reboot, excellent, restoration and healing, great, Chief. Yeah, absolutely. All of these are excellent definitions for sleep. Oh, I love it, Kelly. The single most important key to good health. Yes, team sleep. Adult time. Oh yeah, we're with you too, John and Amy. Yeah, and recovery. Perfect. All excellent definitions. So you're all probably educated on the importance of sleep on the basis that when you don't have good sleep, you know how it affects you. Every part of our body, our health is affected by sleep, right? But in our program, we like to cover this acronym called ACT, and it's our objective. A is for awareness, that what if I was to tell you that the 3 leading causes of first responder mortality are directly linked to chronic sleep deprivation over a career? Okay, what are they? Do you guys know? Type it in the chat. What are the 3 leading causes of first responder death today?
Heart disease. Perfect.
Okay, good. Heart disease. Yep. What else? Yep. Cancer. Good. Chief heard it. Cancer, you nailed it. Suicide, cardiac. Okay, she's taken the class. Very good. I'm glad you have a good memory, Chief. Sleep apnea is linked to some of that. If sleep apnea goes untreated, there's a 60% increased risk for congestive heart failure. So that is a direct connection, absolutely. Oh, Chief says she studied for it, great. So suicide, Steve, maybe Sean, you can type in my fire engineering article that was just released on suicide. I actually do a pretty in-depth breakdown of how sleep deprivation actually has a direct connection to suicidal ideation and action, very sadly. And it was, unfortunately, just to give you guys a glimpse into our world, like I never imagined working with first responders. My backstory, just a small glimpse of a personal story in my life, is that in 2005, I was in college and I was struck by a drunk driver and I was nearly killed. I had a very severe traumatic brain injury and a spinal cord injury. And through my own healing process and journey, I became really passionate about what worked for me and wanting to share it with others who have suffered. And so I started working with people I've worked with people with paralysis from mass shootings, from car accidents, from sports accidents. But then it was the sad loss of my husband's first partner on the job to suicide in 2016, where Sean had said to me, like, all of the practices that you've shared with me, Jacqueline, that have helped me sleep better, I know that would help other firefighters. Why don't you share it with a greater audience? And so I literally was like, in my heart, I just said, okay, I'm all in, I'm doing this in honor of Mike. And so, and we've gotten permission from his family to share about that story. And I'm going all in. I'm gonna just create a program. And so I've been really honored, and I'm grateful for our time together. And I hope that tonight we can get really specific. If there's any specific questions that you guys have about sleep and recovery that pertains to your own personal life, don't be shy. Please type it in the chat box if you want to be anonymous, or you can speak it out loud. We will have a Q&A at the very end. But the way that this session is going to go, it's different from our main our program that we teach to departments. This is more for you guys at a personal level. But what we're going to do is kind of talk a little bit about circadian function and sleep science, a little bit about the research. So if you've taken our class before, it'll be a refresher in that regard. But then we're going to talk about the solutions specifically for you guys to really create a container of success, because our culture, so we did A for awareness, C is for culture. Who here has ever heard "I'll sleep when I'm dead" or said "I'll sleep when I'm dead," right? That's the culture we live in. I just need one more cup of coffee to power through. Or, sleep is for sissies, and that is like a badge of honor. We're going to power through as if we could win an award. But actually it's, what is it? The Guinness World Records, they banned the contest of how long you could stay awake for because it's so detrimentally horrible for your health.
Yeah, Matt Walker, who's one of like the leading sleep scientists and researchers probably in the world, has a great quote about this. And he said, "Consider how important sleep is." He said, "Guinness thinks it's perfectly acceptable for a human being to climb inside of a disposable spaceship, take that spaceship outside of the Earth's atmosphere, open the door, jump out, free fall for 5 minutes, and parachute back to Earth. But staying awake for the longest period of time is too unsafe for them to endorse."
Yeah. The last person who did it said that he was messed up for years because of how the sleep deprivation affected him. So C is for culture. We're going to address that, and even I'll invite you to consider your own perceptions around sleep. Like, we honor our hunger, right? Like when you get a hunger pain, you're like, I gotta eat. We prioritize that. But when we feel tired, do we honor that impulse, or do we just say, where's the nearest Starbucks, right? So we're going to look at and reflect and have a little self-awareness to shift our own perception around our greater culture and what that billion-dollar industry of energy drinks has created within all of us. And then lastly is the tools. I'm going to guide you at the very end in a 3-step protocol that is been studied and researched, and anecdotally as well, like first responders who do this practice are like, wow, this really changed my sleep. And I feel so much better after I do it. And so you're going to experience that today. I hope you have a comfortable space to lay down. And it's a form of guided relaxation that I'm trained and specialized in. But Sean is actually going to teach you guys the class and get into some of the research. What's our time actually? You're good. Okay, so he's going to cover a little bit of the research and sleep stuff, and then we'll get into the solutions here.
So in building off what Jacqueline said, the first place that we can start in understanding how to support ourselves, especially in a family structure or as partners, is wrapping our heads around the culture of "I'll sleep when I'm dead." So just show of hands or nods on the camera. How many of you have heard or been guilty of saying "I'll sleep when I'm dead"? I see some hands and some head shaking. This is a prevailing kind of call to action for productivity, especially in Western culture. Because in Western culture, the way that we view sleep is as an inactive process. And when we don't understand how sleep actually works in optimizing our overall health and wellness, what ultimately happens is we see it as one of the first things that we can sacrifice in the interest of productivity. The problem is, when we say "I'll sleep when I'm dead," we don't realize the prevailing research around the country is actually proving that that may just be a self-fulfilling prophecy. And that's because sleep in and of itself is one of the most intricate and important tools to maintaining our body's overall health, wellness, and functionality. So first and foremost, I just want to drive home the point of how important sleep is for our overall wellness by exploring some of this research and looking at the direct link sleep has to our leading causes of morbidity and mortality, because that helps paint a picture for how critical this is and how much we can embrace this as a health and wellness tool. So just to begin by defining what is poor quality sleep. And with that, I just want to ask the question, and you guys again can just raise your hands. How many of you would say that you get more than 7 consecutive hours of sleep consistently every night? I see a lot of head shaking. Well, according to the US Committee on Sleep Health and Medicine, less than 7 consecutive hours of sleep per night is technically the classification for what is considered poor quality sleep. I think that is a number that effectively pertains to almost all first responders, and quite frankly, most of their spouses as well, or partners or family members. Now, poor quality sleep by that definition actually predicts cause mortality. And it has been proven, to name just a few, that people who have chronically poor quality sleep or disrupted sleep have a 200% increased risk for heart attack, a 30 to 40% increased risk for metabolic dysfunction, including diabetes. Men have a 50% increased risk for colorectal cancer. Women have a 40% increased risk for breast cancer. And which perhaps to me was one of the most shocking, is that persons with poor quality or chronically disrupted sleep are 1.5 times more likely to commit suicide than those with diagnosed depression. So think about that. If your sleep is chronically poor quality, you are 1.5 times more likely to take your own life than if you have a diagnosed mental health disease like depression.
That's an incredible stat, especially when we talk about other things that are affecting fire service people. My mind is officially blown for the evening. Sorry, I just need to say that.
Oh, absolutely. And thank you for interjecting, because that to me is the most standout statistic for all of this as well, because part of what we found is being able to explore the actual physiological link between the nature of the work that first responders do and their propensity for suicidal ideation and action. And understanding that on a physiological level, we can actually get to a place of suicidal ideation and action without necessarily experiencing those major precursors that we so commonly associate with mental health dis-ease. So you can get there without the super traumatic call or the series of bad calls or the major life change like a divorce or loss of a loved one. Normal life stressors can compound to a place that is this extreme just based on the physiological impact that poor quality sleep has on the way that our brain functions.
And those physiologic impacts are, a reduction and dysregulation of your neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin, which make you feel good and feel motivated. And the longer you're awake, the more engaged your stress center of your brain is. So the amygdala, which is your stress center, according to some research, it'll actually be 60% more active than a regular amygdala when I think this study was when you limit your sleep to 4 hours per night.
For just one night.
So that means you're not functioning from your prefrontal cortex, which is logic, reason, executive decision-making. Your amygdala is literally hijacking your person and making you irrational, impulsive, snappy, and illogical. And so we think, I could power through, but actually, what is the quality of your decision making, the quality of your emotional state, your mood, your regulation, your ability to be lovey on your partner? No, get away from me. When I'm in a sleep deprived state, you get snappy. And so there's a direct physiologic effect from that sleep loss that really impairs relationships. And I think there's a really serious case for arguing that sleep can help relationships,
Yes. And, this is something that we don't have time to get into tonight, but this is something that comes up in our full 4-hour classes. We actually take all of those leading causes of firefighter mortality, from metabolic health to cardiovascular health to immune function to mental health and wellness. And we break down the total physiology of like what happens when your sleep is deprived, what is chemically and physically altering in the body, how does that lead to these increased propensities for these different disease processes, and how does improving sleep reverse those disease processes. But for the sake of tonight, is we really just want to take a picture of kind of introducing you guys to the idea that sleep is not the sacrificial lamb, and it will predict all-cause mortality. It will significantly shorten your life and your overall health and wellness outcome just by the nature of being chronically disrupted or too short. Now, a big part of the reason for this, or probably the cornerstone reason for this, has everything to do with the way sleep helps in balancing your autonomic nervous system. So essentially, the autonomic nervous system is two key processes that operate within our body: our rest and digest or parasympathetic nervous system, and our fight or flight reactions. So, in a normal, everyday functioning human being, we spend the vast majority of our time in rest and digest. We are at ease. That's normal balance functioning of the body. So, you're going to see things like effortless and easy breathing, confident and light behavior and movement, clear sensory and body awareness, clear cognitive processing, and a nice balanced functionality of all of the different operating systems of the body. But of course, we can't always function like this. And as humans, we have this built-in emergency response in case we experience a threat. And that's called the fight or flight response, or the sympathetic nervous system response. So when we're exposed to an external threat, our body is going to move out of rest and digest, and it's going to move into fight or flight. And in fight or flight, we're shutting down all non-essential functions of the body, and we're ramping up any essential function of the body that is necessary for survival. So we're going to have strong muscle rigidity and reactivity, increased respiratory rate, increased cardiac drive, decreased digestion and nutrition absorption, and to a greater extent, decreased cognitive thinking as we default more to that reactive amygdala brain that Jacqueline was just talking about.
And more adrenaline, cortisol, the stress hormones, putting you into an anxious state. And the only problem is with our fight or flight system. It's actually a beautiful system for survival, but the only problem is when our system gets stuck, the gear gets stuck there.
So we're going to move into that in just a second, but this is a really critical system, especially for first responders and for first responder family members, because we do need to rely on the sympathetic nervous system for critical moments in our lives. And I want to be really careful about that, because I don't want to present this information in a way that totally maligns the fight or flight response. We rely on that for critical moments. On the fire ground, as first responders, we may rely on that to exercise at an auto extrication at 2 o'clock in the morning, or to effectively operate at a structure fire, or as a paramedic to have that muscle memory to effectively and professionally work a cardiac arrest when you're half asleep. Then while we're at the firehouse and our partner is at home taking care of the house, they might need that sympathetic nervous system response to get up and take care of a newborn baby at 2 o'clock in the morning when they're crying. Or inevitably, when that thing happens in the house that's bound to happen because we're on shift, you need to be ready for that. When the hot water heater explodes, the power goes out, there's a flood in the kitchen, all of those things are a time when that sympathetic nervous system response, that fight or flight reaction, is super critical and super beneficial.
Are you suggesting that our kids are killing us by any chance? Was that in your messaging? I'm just curious.
Maybe a little bit. We'll get our revenge when we're old and they have to take care of us. It comes full circle. So, but as Jacqueline was starting to say, the thing about the sympathetic nervous system is because it's responsible for our survival, it's not entirely reliant on our cognitive understanding of what a threat is. In other words, external stimuli in the environment that we live in can send a signal to our brain that there is a threat, and that the body has to respond by initiating the sympathetic nervous system and shutting down the rest and digest process. And this can happen regardless of how we are perceiving our outside environment cognitively. So one of the key elements that does this is exposure to blue spectrum light during nighttime hours. And this is just one example. So humans are diurnal beings, which means we're designed to be awake during the day and asleep during the night. And that whole system is operated by an internal clock that we have that dictates how our body releases hormones. So in other words, when we're exposed to light, our body perceives it to be daytime, and we release daytime hormones like cortisol. And as that light starts to go away and the sun starts to set, that cortisol production shuts off, our brain switches gears, and we start to produce sleep chemicals like melatonin, and those prepare us for the nighttime. Now, on top of that system, there are countless other internal clocks that utilize other signals to recognize daytime versus nighttime. And when we're exposed to artificial light during the nighttime, when our body is recognizing that it should be evening, what happens is our brain perceives that as a threat, and it switches the body into the sympathetic nervous system response. So a good example I like to use is, a couple shifts ago, we had a non-emergent lift assist at 2:30 in the morning for a lady who just slid out of bed and needed help back into bed. No part of that call on a cognitive level was triggering me to feel excited or to recognize that I was gearing up for like a threat or a particularly challenging call. However, just the nature of me being awake at 2 o'clock in the morning and being exposed to artificial light and functioning as a human was enough for my brain to send that signal of threat and transition my body into the sympathetic nervous system response. And light is just one element. Other elements that can also simulate a threat to the body without our cognitive awareness could include stimulants like caffeine, artificial sources of blue spectrum light, most prominently televisions, cell phones, and computers, and then auditory stimuli. A big one for us at work would be something like listening to the radio or the vocal alarm at night, or even things like falling asleep listening to TV. We're not understanding the impact that auditory stimuli is having on us while we're sleeping, even though we're sleeping. It's still activating that fight or flight response. And then most importantly, or most significant of all, is simply the matter, like I just said, the matter of being awake at night. The nature of shift work and being up at atypical hours in and of itself is constantly sending the signal to the body that we are having a perceived threat. So essentially, emergency workers are constantly overloading our sympathetic nervous system. We're overutilizing this research that's only meant to be used on a smaller scale. And even more so as our partners and our spouses are doing the same thing at home. It's easy to look at the nature of our work and see how we're overloading our fight or flight response. But what we also have to remember is that we're not doing this alone. When we're at work and we're at the firehouse and we're doing what we have to do professionally, there is somebody who is at home taking care of the house. We can look at our situation and we have a slightly unique situation because we live in an off-grid house. So while I'm at work running calls, Jacqueline's at home by herself, having to take care of our 3 animals, having to put wood in the fire stove to heat the house, having to worry about operating the generator because we're in an off-grid house and sometimes we need a generator for power. All of these things are affecting her overutilization of the sympathetic nervous system as much as it's affecting me. And that's where we have to understand that it's not just a team effort in a family dynamic where one person is taking care of the first responder who's chronically sleep deprived, but we both have to work together to be conscientious of both of our needs for adequate rest and recovery and optimal sleep recovery.
So like an example of this is like, let's say Sean works a shift and then an overtime shift, and it's the middle of the winter and I'm like hauling firewood in the house because, well, until this last year, we only had wood fire stove, and by off-grid, we literally are not connected to the electrical system in the world. Like we're 100%, our electricity is 100% generated by our solar panels and our windmill. But anyways, I digress. So let's say I'm bringing in all the firewood 48 hours and Sean has a really busy shift. When he gets off shift, or you could probably think in terms of your own life, if you have a little kid or a baby or any other responsibilities, when he gets off shift, I'm like, oh, finally I could get a break from bringing the firewood in. And he's probably coming home thinking, oh, great, I can finally rest after all this busy stuff I've been dealing with on shift, right? And so we both have to recognize what is the balance and how can we support each other to have a reset and break, and creating a defined, like literally just like in a work agreement, like, okay, I actually have a defined time and like there's like a boundary around it. So you're not just like, we're not promoting people to sleep on the couch all day. That's not it. We're saying, creating conversations around, all right, well, a healthy nap after shift. Do we get into this? Did you have sleep cycles in here? Okay, so we're going to talk about like the appropriate time for a nap and the timing, and maybe even some nutritional ideas that might support your sleep and recovery. But where was I going with the? Okay, I don't know where I was going either, but we'll go ahead.
So
I
what
think
I want to emphasize,
it's more interesting that you keep talking about this mythical creature of heating your house. We need to have a whole separate talk on what it's like to live somewhere that you need to do that.
Oh yeah, you're in Florida. You're so lucky.
yeah.
This sweater is obnoxiously hot this evening. Just
Yeah, we'll talk about that at the end of the presentation. Like if anybody's taking laterals, I think
Yeah, we'll switch.
yeah, the
We'll
vibe
take
of this room
Florida
is pretty
any
good.
day.
I can come down to Florida. But so moving into this, what I want to address is I think for far too long, when we've talked about the topic of sleep, what we talk about is this magic number. You need 8 hours of sleep a night. And I think almost all of us in this room, I can't see everybody on my screen at once, but I would bet we could all roll our eyes at that, because between the nature of our work and the nature of the responsibilities that we have at home as a family, it is not realistic to simply say like, yeah, so sleep's important, so get more sleep. That doesn't exist in a normal everyday functioning lifestyle. So what we like to talk about more is in understanding that sleep is the key to resetting the autonomic nervous system and getting back into rest and digest. It's not entirely about the quantity of sleep that you get, but there are tools to impact the quality of the sleep that you're getting when you're sleeping. So in other words, not all sleep is created equal. And we have to understand how the process of sleep actually works to understand how to best, enhance those critical components of sleep that are going to give us the most bang for our buck, so to speak. So let's take a look at actually what happens when we sleep. So when we lay down at night and we go to sleep, we're going to enter into the sleep cycle. The sleep cycle lasts on average approximately 90 minutes, and it's comprised of 5 key stages. Now, if we look at this like a machine, the first 3 stages of the sleep cycle are essentially the lockout, tagout, and shutdown phase. So during those 3 stages, all of our body systems are kind of decreasing their demand, and they're preparing for what's going to happen during the beneficial sections of sleep. So during stages 1 through 3, for about the first 60 minutes, you're going to be experiencing decreased heart rate, decreased respiratory drive, muscle relaxation, and then a release of chemicals that are meant to promote good quality sleep. This includes hormones and chemicals that promote how deep into sleep you can get, and chemicals that help kind of prevent movement in your body so that it doesn't disrupt your sleep. But effectively what we're getting here is we're getting a little bit of rest, but we're not really receiving the recovery benefit of sleep itself. That doesn't happen until we enter stage 4. So once we enter stage 4 of the sleep cycle, about 60 minutes into sleep, this is known as delta brainwave sleep. This is when our brain waves are at their slowest, almost like an autopilot. And this is when our body is dedicating all of its resources to physiological repair. So this is when we're going to see things like immune function repair, blood cell regeneration, muscle repair and regeneration. All of that is happening during stage 4. And once that's been accomplished, we're going to start to pick up our brainwave activity a little bit, and we're going to move into REM sleep. Now, can somebody shout it out for me? What is REM sleep most famous for?
dreams.
Dreams, 100%. So if we're dreaming during stage 5, what part of the body are we likely working on?
Memory?
Ooh, memory. Memory is good.
Memory consolidation does happen in REM.
Yeah.
Good, Michelle.
And on a more macro
That
scale,
wasn't Diana Herndon. That was me. I just wanted to hear.
we're keeping scores over here. You're
I'm
on
taking credit for it.
But that's exactly right. It's memory. And on a more macro scale, it's our brain. We're working on our brain as a whole. So in stage 5, we are doing things like consolidating and accessing memories. And as we do that, the brain is actually physically recalibrating the way that we process information. It's recalibrating what's known as the salience network, which are the 3 core components of the brain that dictate how we handle emotional stimuli or outside reactions to things. And it's also recalibrating the chemicals that dictate how we respond to outside stimuli. So we're getting dopamine receptors are regenerating, serotonin levels are balancing. All of this is happening during REM.
So one little piece of like relationship advice that we would give, specific to increase your time in delta, which helps. It's the time that your testosterone is boosted, and us ladies know why we would want that high in our men partners, right? But also for REM, for our mental health. And something that happens when we have too much stress or stimuli is that we're really limiting our ability to get time in REM. And something that we may all enjoy as a default from our culture, and I'm not saying you can't enjoy a cold brew or a glass of wine here and again, of course, absolutely you can, but be mindful of your alcohol use as a couple, because it will actually cause, basically, like if you think of a still lake and you throw a stone and it skips, your sleep cycle will skip over REM when you have alcohol in your system. And that is so critically important for balancing your psychological well-being.
Michelle is hiding her glass of wine now.
My better half sitting next to me says, don't be judgy.
You can enjoy a glass of wine here and there, but just be mindful is what we're getting at.
Yeah. And we just like to bring that up because, like Jacqueline said, like enjoying a drink here and there is totally fine. But we do run into an enormous amount of first responders who have begun using alcohol as a tool to fall asleep. And they're not viewing it as necessarily a problem because they're not abusing alcohol. They're not alcoholics, but they're using 1 or 2 beers or 1 or 2 glasses of wine just to feel sleepy enough to lay in bed and go to sleep, and not understanding the impact that that's having. And to take that back a step further, we were talking about overactivating the sympathetic nervous system. And one of the key consequences that happens when we're overutilizing the sympathetic nervous system is we're getting our hormone balance out of sync. And we're producing way too large an amount of chemicals like cortisol and noradrenaline. And that's going to ultimately prevent us from getting REM or delta sleep. Now, this is really important to understand as a first responder and to understand as the partner of a first responder, because these chemicals are not going to necessarily create a problem where we're unable to fall asleep, especially given the tiring nature of first responder work. Usually our ability to fall asleep is not significantly compromised. A good portion of first responders report they don't have trouble falling asleep, but they either have trouble waking up randomly throughout the night or waking up not feeling rested. And that's because those chemicals like cortisol won't necessarily hurt your ability to fall asleep, which is called sleep latency, but they will significantly jeopardize the quality of sleep that you get once you are asleep. And that's what our program sets out to do, is looking at how do we use sleep as a tool to reset the autonomic nervous system, get back into rest and digest, and ultimately spend as much time as possible in delta brainwave sleep and in REM sleep, regardless of what we have going on at home and regardless of the interruptions that we receive at work. And the 2 fundamental areas that we can look at in order to accomplish this are going to be through sleep hygiene and then ultimately through the first responder sleep recovery practice. So we'll look at sleep hygiene first. And all sleep hygiene is a series of practices that you can engage in throughout the day that are minimally disruptive to your everyday life, that are going to optimize the quality of sleep that you get once you actually get a chance to go to sleep. And we break that down into environment, nutrition and supplementation, and routine. So the first thing I'll talk about is environment. And I've mentioned it briefly early in this presentation. Based on what I've said today, what would you guys say? What's the number one environmental factor that's going to have either a positive or negative impact on our overall sleep quality, depending on how you utilize it?
Snoring. Fireman.
Snoring is a good one. Snoring is a significant environmental factor.
I would say some sort of blue light, the TV or a clock or something, some sort of blue light affecting the depth of sleep that you can get into. That's what my guess would be.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Light is the number one environmental factor that we have control over that has an impact on our ability to get good quality sleep.
And if you don't believe us for this statement, trust Dr. Google right now and type in and ask your Dr. Google, because blue light causes your stress hormone cortisol. And if you have excess cortisol for years from stress or too much blue light or the pandemic itself, type in long-term effects of hypercortisolemia. I'll type that in the, so I want someone to actually Google that right now and share what those effects are, if that isn't enough to get you. Is someone doing it? Let me see. Where's the little chat box?
How to spell that for me, because I'm dyslexic and it's probably going to
I was going to type it in the chat. It's
Right.
HYPERCORTISOL. Okay, here, let me see.
It says vascular damage, atherosclerosis, and cardiovascular disease.
Who said
And
that?
it affects behavior. My dog is trying to dig to China in the background. I'm sorry. It affects behavior, mood, neural activity, memory, and other functions of the central nervous system.
So
hypercortisolemia is something that can happen when we are overexposed to sources of artificial blue light at night. Because when we're exposing ourselves to that artificial blue light, we're shutting down melatonin production and we're triggering our HPA axis in our brain to produce and release cortisol. Now, something else that's significant about this is that the core component that's necessary for creating and manufacturing cortisol in the body is also the core component that's responsible for manufacturing testosterone. Now, cortisol is more critical for survival than testosterone. So if we are overproducing cortisol and we're producing more than the body's really designed to handle, what's going to ultimately happen is we're going to sacrifice the natural production of testosterone in our body so that we can produce more cortisol. And as I say that, I want to emphasize, when we start talking about testosterone, that always is something that kind of speaks to the male audience more than the female audience, but it's important for men and women because we both have a certain balance of cortisol and estrogen in our body. And that balance is responsible for a whole lot of functions, but it's very important for cancer prevention. And when we have a misbalance of our cortisol testosterone in our body, what ultimately is going to happen is we're going to end up with a higher propensity for the onset of cancer, the development of cancer.
But cortisol, it sounds like it has a bad rap. It's just if we get our gears stuck there. So the important thing to know is that your nervous system, your two branches of the nervous system, swing like a pendulum through the day. And if it gets stuck there, then there's problems long term. But if we can learn, and there are practices, which is part of the routine, the environment, and the sleep recovery practice that have been proven to lower your stress hormones, just being able to get into your parasympathetic response. There are very simple things you can do every day that help get you there. And so you have more time in those important stages of sleep that Sean covered.
Yes. So with that, and moving back into the environment, like just understanding the environmental impact that something like light can have on the quality of sleep you get gives people in a family dynamic, gives partners a real good ability to kind of keep each other in check. Because all we want to do is simply control our exposure to light to as closely mimic the rise and fall of the sun as possible. And with that, what we really want to focus on is the elimination of blue spectrum light. And blue spectrum light is emitted from common household items like TVs, cell phones, computers, and fluorescent lighting. So sometimes it's just a matter of having somebody else who understands that in your home that can kind of remind you of that. For example, for me is like, I'm a big TV watcher at night. So a real simple change that has happened in our household that's really beneficial is having Jacqueline to occasionally remind me, hey, if we're going to watch this show right now at 7 o'clock at night, put on your blue blocking glasses. And I have a pair of blue blocker glasses that I use to eliminate some of that blue spectrum light while we participate in this activity that I enjoy at nighttime. Or working together to...
I was actually going to bring mine and I forgot to wear, because right now it's evening. I normally wouldn't be staring at a screen this late without any blue blockers. Oh, Sean has his. That's awesome.
Sure. Case in point, she just reminded me. Blue blocking glasses. But the idea is simple. It's just mimicking the rise and fall of the sun and creating as minimal a disruption as possible for exposure to blue spectrum light at night. This is also something that I practice at work, where these are my home glasses or my around the house glasses. I also have a pair of blue blocking safety glasses that I utilize at work for the same thing.
Mhm.
Or even something as simple as turning off most of the lights in your house at night, or switching out some of your lights for low blue spectrum light bulbs. And those can be the lights that you utilize at night. All of this is promoting the shutdown of cortisol and the production of melatonin, which is going to ultimately optimize the quality of sleep that you get and give you a greater chance of spending time in delta and REM sleep once you do go to bed. Then another thing to talk about is nutrition and supplementation. Again, in our full program, this is something we go into in great depth, but one of the biggest things to talk about with nutrition is timing is first and foremost. Just understanding that digesting food is a very active process in our body. And when we eat right before bed and our body is still working on digesting food, it's dedicating energy to that digestion process that it can't dedicate to that physiological repair that you would achieve during delta. And that's going to prevent the amount of time that you ultimately spend in REM, because it's going to take more time to achieve that optimum delta brainwave physiological repair. And then another thing to think about is that inflammation in the body is the root of all evil. Inflammation is directly connected to various different types of disease processes and significantly limits overall wellness in the long term in your body. So if you're looking at doing anything with your diet and nutrition, but you don't want to make any extreme or drastic changes, one, look at your timing, and two, look at ideas for your nighttime meals or your dinners that revolve around an anti-inflammatory diet that's going to ultimately promote better sleep and better wellness. And then finally, there's routine. And if everybody's familiar with Pavlov's dogs have taught us that the human body and most living animals are remarkably receptive to the concept of developing a routine. So when we develop a routine around sleep, we can expedite the early phases of sleep and increase how quickly we can potentially get to delta brainwave sleep. We do this by creating a routine that effectively is triggering our body to understand we're starting the shutdown process. We're starting the process of going to bed. And when we maintain that routine, we can actually start that physical shutdown process while we're still awake and still active. So for me at the firehouse, my routine isn't even necessarily very sleep-based. My routine is just completing my night watch duties as a firefighter in the exact same order, in the exact same manner every single night before I go to bed. And then finishing that off with a shower, where I also initiate a hot to cold temperature change to signal that core cool down that the body needs to undergo for deep sleep. And when I say cold, I mean cool, not cold. You don't want to shock your system with like a freezing cold shower, but I just go from a really hot shower and at the end I back it down to like room temperature or maybe a little cool, just to signal that temperature change. And then when I get into bed, the last thing I do is I put on a sleep recovery practice, and I participate in a sleep recovery practice before sleep. Most of that routine's not sleep-based. A lot of it is taking out trash, filling out the watch tab, tidying up around the firehouse. But because I do it at the same time and complete it in the same order, the entire time that I'm doing that routine, I'm signaling my body I'm getting ready for sleep. And then we can do the same thing at home, where Jacqueline and I have a pretty well-rooted nighttime routine for getting to bed. And it's just a routine that we participate in together, or that we kind of keep a check on each other about our routine. When the TV should go off, when our eating curfew should be, and what things we should be doing as we prepare for bed, so that our body has those signals to be prepared for sleep.
And a lot of people think of sleep hygiene as what you do at night, but in our program, we really actually emphasize the importance of morning time. And that's when your circadian clock starts, is the moment you're exposed to sunlight in the morning. And especially for those of you lucky enough to live in the sunny state of Florida, getting sunlight at the same time every single morning is actually going to recalibrate that internal body clock, so that your cortisol levels peak in the morning and they drop at night. And so that by that time at night, your melatonin levels, your sleep hormone, can elevate. And so I mentioned earlier, like I always like to give a solution to something that I point out, and I mentioned alcohol. There is one natural drink that it's called kava tea, Kava, kava tea. there are anti-anxiety compounds. Thank you so much. There are anti-anxiety compounds in kava tea that it's not like an anti-anxiety of the mind, but it actually is a physical relaxant for your muscles. And that's a key thing that needs to happen to go to sleep, because when we're in that fight or flight state, we have like micro tension in our muscles, and having something that chemically like relaxes our muscles is really a wonderful way to just release, and I call it the buffer zone, to get into a relaxed state for sleep. So I'm basically going to just share a little bit about the sleep recovery practice, I guess. Or go ahead, Sean.
So you guys will see there's a couple things on the screen that I put that's part of creating that team effort in caring for each other's quality of rest and recovery throughout the day. And like Jacqueline said, this is a process that begins from the minute you wake up. You can do things that are going to impact the quality of sleep that you get once you go to bed at night. But for the purposes of tonight, what I want to talk about and what I want to focus on most, if there's one important thing that we can take away as a way to help each other and support each other in a family environment, is to actively take on participating in the first responder sleep recovery practice. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about what it is, and you guys are going to experience it a little bit tonight. But what's amazing about the first responder sleep recovery practice is that it enables us in a waking state to actually, with practice, get into theta and delta brainwave sleep. So part of that critical component of rest and recovery. And if we're able to spend more time in that theta and delta brainwave sleep during the day by participating in a 20 to 60 minute sleep recovery practice, then our body can dedicate more time naturally to REM sleep when we sleep at night, and we're having this minimal disruption on our day. So instead of your partner coming home from the firehouse after a long shift and just laying down in bed and sleeping for 6 hours and blowing their whole day, which is not realistic, what he or she can do is participate in a sleep recovery practice. And in a sleep recovery practice, brain scans have shown that you can actually get the equivalent to 3 to 4 hours of sleep in a 45-minute sleep recovery practice. So we're optimizing that rest and recovery, and it's a tool that can be used by both of us. Because like I said earlier, like when one of us is at the firehouse or patrolling the streets or in an ambulance for the night, the other person is at home taking care of the house. So both people are going to be more fatigued than normal when we come back to each other. And both of us are entitled to picking up the slack on one end and giving an opportunity for rest on the other end. And with a tool like the sleep recovery practice, we can both have the opportunity at home on an off day to get some of that necessary rest and recovery while still having time to manage the obligations that we have to our partner during the day as well.
So if I could just mention one thing. So the brain scans, the positron emission tomography PET scans showed theta and delta. I just have to emphasize that within 30 minutes or so, people who practice this type of guided relaxation regularly basically are achieving the most restorative sleep you could get. That normally would take like an hour to get into those deep, slow wave states. So it's just basically a supercharged nap. And the best thing is those people were actually conscious. So if you have insomnia, if you have a busy mind, if you're anxious, don't worry about it. The point of this practice is not to fall asleep. The point of this practice is to consciously train your mind, your body like a muscle for relaxation, the relaxation muscle, okay? So don't worry, I'm not trying to put you to sleep. I'm trying to give you some tools that have been proven to relax the body. And sleep may happen naturally, but set all expectations aside. When the study was done, it was done at the University Hospital in Copenhagen. They asked the people, can you recall the instructions of the recording that you were guided in? And they were able to recall everything. And they said, wow, that's so strange. You're telling me what you consciously experienced in Delta. Scientists, we believed that for the longest time, a person cannot be conscious in Delta brainwaves. So this form of meditation is according to what has been documented, the most relaxing of all the meditations, and it's effortless. You don't need any experience. If you've meditated before in a different style, it's very common to feel frustrated because some meditations are very hard because they're like, clear your mind. Well, how do you clear your mind? You've got thoughts. We actually, in this practice, focus the thoughts on something specific and give your brain a task. So then it becomes like, oh, I'm working with my brain versus against my brain. And it's a very effective method that I've been honored to study with some of the world's best meditation teachers in this specific type of practice. And I've just simply tailored the language to be accessible to the first responder community.
Yeah. So in short, what's amazing about the first responder sleep recovery practice is that on the side of the developer of the practice, like Jacqueline, it's enormously complex. There's a very specific way that a sleep recovery practice is delivered, with a very specific sequence of things happening that requires a great deal of care. So it's not the same as just any relaxation practice or meditation practice you would put on. There's an enormous amount of science that goes into developing this practice. But what's more important is that for us as participants in the practice, utilizing it, there is absolutely no way that you can possibly do this wrong. Mm-hmm. All you have to do is listen to the audio recording, and we're going to make sure that you guys get access to one of the audio recordings after this meeting is done tonight. I'll send that to Michelle so she can get it out to you guys. But that's what's so great about it, is things like meditation require a lot of active participation, and you can really easily mess it up because you're doing things like clearing the mind, which is really hard to do. You can't necessarily do that with a sleep recovery practice. You can't mess it up, and as long as you're doing it, you're improving it. Think about sleep then. If sleep is the marathon that we're planning on doing, the sleep recovery practice is all of the training leading up to the marathon. It's never going to be perfect every single day, but it's always going to give us some sort of a benefit and some sort of a stride closer to completing that marathon. And that's what we're accomplishing with the sleep recovery practice.
I want to draw your attention really quick to the chat because you have a question about what you're talking about here.
Oh, yep. If I can get to the chat, there we go.
We're having problems with our screen seeing the chat.
The question is this something that the Muse headset conditions you to do?
I've never heard of the Muse headset. What could you speak to that? You could come off.
There's a it's for meditation and guided imagery. It's called Muse, M-U-S-E, and I thought that's what they were saying. It helps condition you to get the delta and theta waves. Mm-hmm. It looks like something from Star Trek goes on your head. You connect to an app, and as you're listening to a background of birds or whatever, as you start to get into the theta waves, the volume gets less and less. But when you start to drift off, it gets louder and louder. It's supposed to try and guide you back into it.
Interesting. Yeah, I'd love to send us an email with info on that. That's really interesting.
That does seem to make sense. Like I said, we'd have to look into it more to know if that's exactly what it is, but it does make sense with what's being accomplished by the sleep recovery practice, because you're going to hear prompts in the practice that say, don't fall asleep. And the reason for that is if we can stay awake and bring ourselves down into those theta and delta brainwaves, we can just stay there and we can elongate the amount of time that we spend in delta, which is really critical. But once we fall asleep, then our body will naturally enter that regular sleep cycle, and we'll start cycling through that 90-minute cycle and hitting REM and the first 3 stages of the sleep cycle. And that's probably what goes to that headset, bringing you out of falling totally asleep and trying to keep you in that sweet spot.
It makes sense.
They call it a neurofeedback EEG device. So the headset actually has electrodes on it to read the EEGs.
Yeah, that's cool. And it makes sense also that they use nature sounds, because when there's birds that we could hear in our environment, like I remember, just a side story, when we had an eclipse a couple years ago, all of the bird sounds in the mountains where we live like just went away. And when the sun went away, because it was perceived as danger. And when our biology is really wired to the sounds of nature. So water sounds soothing because that's our nourishment, right? the sounds of crickets, the sounds of birds. Like, this is all saying, if there are birds out, that means there's no predator. That means we're safe. So it's like calming to us. So that makes sense.
But real quickly, I want to touch on these last couple slides before we get to the experience. So I said there's a lot of complex science that goes into how a sleep recovery practice actually works. And the sleep recovery practice is essentially constructed around 4 key elements, and that's somatic exercises, vagal stimulation, respiratory exercises, and consciousness exercises. So somatic exercises, which are essentially just intentional movements with a cognitive focus on the movement itself, that is something that works to help activate the somatic nervous response and move us from fight or flight back into rest and digest. It's enormously helpful for releasing some of the physical tension that we might be holding on to because of external stimuli that's coming from that fight or flight response. And then there's respiratory techniques. And breathing techniques or respiratory exercises, which include deep breathing and diaphragmatic breathing, are another form of physiologically triggering your body to shift from fight or flight back into the parasympathetic rest and digest response. And one of the ways that this can be done is through vasovagal activation, or stimulating the vagus nerve. So what we're going to do is we're going to do breathing exercises that are effectively going to place gentle amounts of muscular pressure on the pneumogastric nerve, which is connected with the 10th cranial nerve. And that's going to signal the body to do a lot of the things that we want to see in shifting to that rest and digest response. That includes decreasing the heart rate and cardiac demand, decreasing respiratory rate, increasing your actual heart rate variability, and activating the SNS and balancing the SNS, and activating the parasympathetic nervous system so that we can balance the PNS and the SNS. And this is interesting because as you practice this, you can actually increase vagal tone, which means you can increase the body's receptivity to this practice exponentially over time. If anybody wants to look into that even more, you can look up Dr. Porges. He's been kind of at the forefront of controlled vasovagal activation in the polyvagal theory. And then finally, there's cognitive exercises. We're going to take all of these things to bring our body systems down, and then we're going to enter into cognitive exercises. And these exercises are designed to simulate that decreasing of brainwave activity that would naturally come during a regular sleep cycle, to decrease the output of activity from the amygdala, and to get us into those delta brainwaves. Now, something that's really cool is when other researchers have done studies of the sleep recovery practices core foundation, which is a practice known as yoga nidra, what they have found is that people who practice this regularly demonstrated an overall 60% increase in endogenous dopamine production, which is in short our feel-good hormone. They've demonstrated a decrease in activity in the amygdala, along with an increase in the hippocampus and the prefrontal cortex. But perhaps most shockingly is over an 8-week period of time with regular practice of this practice, participants actually showed a measurable physical growth of the prefrontal cortex in the hippocampus. So you're not just resetting the brain, but you're increasing the neuroplasticity of the brain and physically growing the brain to a place where it's functionally more receptive to cognitive reasoning and rational thinking and overall balance of the brain. But with all that being said, that's a lot of fancy talk to get into something that is really best experienced rather than talked about. So we would like to give you guys a short introductory version of a sleep recovery practice itself. In preparation for that, I would ask that if you guys have cell phones on or radios or anything that can make noise that you don't necessarily have to listen to for your own sake, turn those off or put those on airplane mode. If you have audible devices that you absolutely can't turn off, I just ask that you please mute your screen so that it doesn't impact anybody else on the screen. And then Jacqueline will set you up for everything else you need to prepare for the practice. And we will have a short Q&A after this as well.
I think so. I just want to make sure that everyone's environment is secure. So for example, lock your door if you're in a room that you can, so nobody storms in and interrupts this very special experience that we're about to have. turn your cell phones off. I'm going to make sure mine is off. Sean, did you make sure yours is? So are you going to demonstrate for us?
If you want me to.
Yeah, that would be great. So you guys, I want to invite you to do full out. Okay, this is, nobody can see you. You're hopefully in a place where you could be comfortable, and it's non-judgmental. There's no wrong way to do it. But I invite you to, for this short period of time, to be here fully now, go full out, really open your mind up to the possibility of just taking this as a first time experience to truly train your nervous system to unwind and relax. And we're gonna experience, you know, modern neuroscience practices paired with ancient yogic practices that date back 3,000 years. So this is for you, this is from my heart. And I've dedicated my life to this, so I'm so grateful to share this with you today. And thank you for your openness and practicing. What you're gonna start to do is, we're gonna stand. You're gonna take a wide stance here. So Sean's getting his blankets out and all the cozy items he needs. Can you guys hear me okay? Give me a thumbs up. Okay, good. So just gonna tilt this up so I don't know if you can see me. So you're gonna take a wide stance. Make sure that your feet are firmly planted on the ground. Focus your gaze a few feet ahead of you on the ground at a still point. And if it feels comfortable, if you feel balanced in your body, close the eyes. And once again, just like we did before, feel the feet connecting to the earth. Spread the toes. And just start to feel that grounding sensation. So much of the time we're in our heads and we're not in our body. So we're really consciously bringing our awareness into the felt sense of being. How do you feel in your body right now without judging or analyzing? Can you just welcome yourself into this practice just as you are? Feeling the feet ground down, feeling the thighs strong and stable, feeling the pelvis, noticing the belly, noticing the arms, the head, the spine. Just starting to notice the breath here. What we're going to start with is a very simple somatic exercise of, we're just going to imagine ourselves like thinking about anything held, like a tension, a mental tension or an emotional tension you've had in your body. And we're going to imagine our bodies kind of like an autumn tree. Like if you shake a tree, you know, the leaves fall off, right? So we're going to imagine, we're going to just start to shake our arms, and you're just going to put a little bounce into your knees, and you're going to imagine that any tension held, whether it's in this day or this week, maybe 10 years ago, something that really caused your body tension, imagine flicking that tension as if you're just flicking it to the earth, letting it all go, giving yourself full permission to really let it go, and visualize, just like you would visualize the leaves falling off a tree. Imagine this tension flicking off your fingertips, floating to the earth. You're really shaking up your arms, bouncing in the legs. Now pick up the speed a little bit more. Go a little bit faster. Really feel the sensation of getting into your body. You could give yourself a smile or a laugh if you're accessing, you know, little kids are really good at letting go of tension. They're just flailing around all day long because it feels good. And somewhere along the way, we were told as adults to be stiff, right? So shake it out, just a few more moments here. And maybe it's not even that, maybe you've already released all your tension from the day, and now you're just feeling a sense of joy, like, oh, it feels good to bounce and have a little playfulness in my body. Right on. Maybe you're just taking a sway because it feels soothing. Whatever feels good to you right now is welcome. So just taking a few more breaths here. Really focusing on the exhale for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good. Stand up tall. Bring your arms out to the side. Focus on the sensation in your fingertips, the palms of the hands. Maybe you feel a vibration, a hum, a tingling or a pulsation, and breathe, focusing on the right palm of the hand, feeling sensation there, breathing in and exhaling out. Now feeling the left palm of the hand, breathe in and breathe out. Now focus on both palms simultaneously, breathing in as if breathing in the center of the palms of the hands, breathing deep and exhaling out. Good, now just a gentle, this is gonna be not even a fourth of the time. We're just gonna, I call it the sprinkler dance, because you're kind of gonna swing your arms like a sprinkler head, and you're just gonna unravel the spine, because our spines actually are meant to move in all directions. And when we get stiff from stress, we just get stuck, right? So this is just teaching our nervous system that we can loosen up, literally, not just physically, but can we mentally unclench our grasp on whatever it is we're going through in life or in this moment? Can we just kind of bring back that simplicity of movement that children know how to do so freely? Can we just welcome a sense of freedom in our own body right now? Just one more time on each side now. Good, and come back to center, palms face forward. Just a gentle bend in the knees, and we're gonna do a very, very gentle side body stretch to prepare our lungs for the breathing activity. So what you're gonna do is just reach your arms high to the sky, and what you're gonna do is just gently go from side to side. Don't overdo it, just gently open up so that intercostal muscles between the ribs start to stretch. Don't go to your full capacity, just gently sway side to side. And notice your breath. Are you holding your breath, or can you just tune into your breath and make it slow and steady? Find a natural rhythm that feels good to you. Good, and then hold one side. Focus your eyes on a still point or close your eyes. And take 3 slow breaths, really focusing the breath into the side body so it opens a little bit more with each exhale. Perhaps creating a little bit of a sigh, an oceanic sound as you exhale. In yoga, it's called Ujjayi breath. Ujjayi means the victorious breath. One more breath here. And going a little bit deeper on your exhale. Slowly, very mindfully rise to center. Cactus the arms, draw the shoulder blades together, lift the heart, just a gentle stretch through the front side of the body. Breathing deep here, breathe in. And then exhale, tuck and curl the chin to the chest and reach your hands forward and just do a lateral stretch side to side. Feeling the back side open up. Good, and then come back up, gentle cactus, goalposting the arms. And then exhale, reach the arms above the head, hold on to the opposite wrist, and then go to the opposite side. Try to keep the arms straight and long, draw that upper elbow back. Nice form, Michelle. Good work, press into that hip, breathe deep into the side body and take 3 long, slow, deep breaths. Just being with the sensation, don't resist it, just welcome it. Reconnecting to your body in a whole new way, getting in touch with the sensation of being in your own body. Breathe deep. One more breath here. Excellent. Very slowly, mindfully rise to center. And let's do that cactus one more time, arching the spine, this time going a little bit deeper, lifting the chin, heart is open. What does this symbolize? What are you opening up to? What do you need more in life? And then reach forward. Let's draw that in and just sway side to side. Good. And then take a wide stance again. Let's see if I could angle this down a little bit. Okay, so you're going to take a wide stance, bend the knees, Actually, yeah, let's get into some gorilla squat. Kind of feels good, right? So you're just gonna sway side to side. We're getting into our psoas muscle, go side to side. So our psoas muscle constricts when we're stressed, and that it actually starts in our low back. So when we're tense and tight and our hips don't get a good release, that'll pull on our low back. So that's why people say you have low back pain when you're stressed out. I love to stretch my hips every night. This is like a very important part of my sleep recovery practice and routine. So just going side to side, you know, like it seems so silly to like let out a little gorilla sound, but I'm gonna invite you right now. Do it, Sean. Okay, so here we are. Straighten the legs, bend the knees, and just let the head hang forward. Shake your head, yes. Shake your head, no. I always challenge people in these classes to get playful and silly because our world is so serious and we gotta lighten up a little bit somewhere, somehow. We gotta invite time into our life to be playful and fun, to the antidote of all of the stress our world is putting us through right now. So place your left hand on the ground and reach the right arm high to the sky. Take a deep breath in. And then exhale, lower the hand down. Now we're gonna match breath to movement. So you're just really connecting as you inhale, your left arm reaches high. And then your exhale guides your hand down. Do this in synchronization. So inhale, reaching the right arm up. And then exhale, it floats down. Do this 2 more times on each side. Twisting from the navel. Good. And then let the head hang heavy for 3 slow breaths. Mentally say, I am breathing in. I am breathing out. Giving your brain something to focus on. Mentally speaking to yourself, focusing on the breath. I am breathing in. I am breathing out. Final time. I am breathing in. I am breathing out. Good. Final stretch here. Come over into a runner's lunge. Make sure the right knee is directly over the ankle. You can drop the knee down, or if this is too much on your knees, you can lay on your back. I'll demonstrate, and you can bring your right knee to your chest. Okay, this is our final stretch, and then we'll get into the deep relaxation, I promise, okay? So just taking a slow, deep breath here, and exhale. 2 more breaths just like that. Breathing a little bit deeper, a little bit slower. Feeling how good it is to release into those hip muscles. And then slowly lift that back leg. Walk your hands all the way to the other side. Doesn't matter how deep the stretch is, it matters that you're breathing and that you're giving yourself permission to be here and welcoming yourself just as you are into this experience. You're perfect. You're doing this just right, taking 3 slow breaths. You can't do it wrong. Okay, and then come down. I love your variation, Sean. Come down into a seated position. Let's see if you can see me here. Okay, so I'm going to teach you a vagal breathing technique. John, are you going to practice with us? You're invited. Okay, I'm going to teach you this incredible technique. It stimulates your vagus nerve, which literally helps your body relax, okay? It is so simple. It's actually an ancient breath technique. It's called Brahmari breathing. It's like 3,000 years old. I did not invent it, but we incorporate it into the sleep recovery because it's so incredibly effective. So what we're going to do is 7 breaths I'm gonna mind the count, and what you're gonna do actually is, I'll demonstrate first, okay? It's sensory deprivation. So you can focus your attention inward. You're gonna focus on the length of your exhale, trying to lengthen the exhale as long as possible. And we're gonna create the letter M sound. So like something is yummy, as you exhale. And what I'm gonna do is plug my trachea, my ear flap, and then I'm gonna place my fingertips on the eyes. I'm gonna sit up straight so that my nerves are in a, like my nerves can flow. So what I'm gonna do, I'll just demonstrate once, and I'm gonna focus my attention on the sound as if it's filling up my skull and replacing all my thoughts with the sound. And I'm just gonna focus on my internal experience of my sound. I'm closing the trachea, covering my eyes. Just listen once, noticing how long my exhale is. So that's the technique. So what you're gonna do, I'm gonna have you either lay down on your back, it's easier because your arms might get tired doing this, or sit against a wall, but I wanna make sure that your heads aren't forward. I want your cervical spine to be aligned so that the nerves can flow. So I'll demonstrate seated. Sean is behind me. He's gonna do this Brahmari breath technique laying down. Okay, so get comfortable. You can lay down, just be comfortable. And I'll tell you, actually don't close your ear flap all the way because you won't hear me, because you're gonna hear your own hum. Just close it halfway so you can still hear my voice. And even if thoughts come, who cares? Just let them go. Focus on the sound of your own breath. All right, so as I said, let's go full out. And okay, let's begin. Taking a slow breath in. And let's begin. Go at your own pace. Continue with the breaths. Let's do one more just for fun. Good, now stop. Wipe your hands down and let your hands just drop down to the sides, and just notice the vibratory effect in your throat and skull. Breathe naturally. Notice the calming effect, the clarity. Just take a couple slow and natural breaths here. Now lay down on your back if it's available to you, or if you are having any preference to lay on your side or belly, you can do it in any position, but it's an optimal position to lay on your back with your feet hip width distance, toes flopped out to the sides, hands slightly away from the body, and the palms of the hands faced upward or slightly inward, facing the body. Our fingertips have a lot of nerve endings, and if our fingertips are hands down, it's getting stimulus from fabric. So it's better if you can have air in contact with your fingers. But of course, everything I offer is an invitation. You can adapt as needed to your own comfort. So as we enter, please know, again, there's nothing you can do to make this practice wrong. You're perfect and welcome. I welcome you to this practice. And please welcome yourself home to your body. A very amazing technique to do, as well as the Brahmari breathing, is called progressive muscular relaxation. And it's a very simple, we'll just rotate through different muscles in the body, tensing and releasing. And it's almost like it helps that pendulum. You tense just so that you could release the muscle. So you can swing a little bit deeper and faster into that parasympathetic response. So let's start with the right side of the body. Make a fist with your hand and flex the muscles. Tense and tighten the muscles of your arms. Very nice. Tense and hold. And tense and hold the right leg. Tense and hold, keeping that arm muscles tight. Tense, hold from glute to right toes, the whole right side of the body, hold. Good, now exhale, release. Release and relax the right side of the body. Now breathe normally and feel a flood of energy down your right arm as you exhale. Breathe in and exhale, feel a flood of energy down that right leg. Just feeling the whole right side of the body become heavy and limp, pulled to gravity. Breathing normal. Good, now the left side, make a fist with your left hand, tense and tighten the left arm, and then the left leg, flex and hold, tense, tighten even more, you might even feel a quiver, that's natural, hold, breathe normally, but tighten and hold, tighten. Good, now exhale and release the left arm, the left leg, let it just drip down to the ground like honey drips from a hive. Now breathe normally, inhale, focus on that left arm, and as you exhale, feel a flood of energy just flow like a waterfall down the left arm. Breathing in and exhale, feel that flood of energy down from the hip to the left toes. And just breathe normal, feeling connected, the left side of the body now, full permission to release downward. Good, now tensing both arms and both legs, the whole body, creating tension in the whole body, but breathe normally. Tighten the abdomen, the face, the arms, the legs, tense and squeeze the toes, squeeze everything tight. Tense, hold. You might feel a quiver, your arms and legs might lift off the ground. Squeeze everything tight, hold. Tighten even more. Exhale, release. Good. Open and close the jaw. Release any tension as you take a deep belly breath in. And you let out an open mouth, yummy sigh. Let it all go. Breathing deep into the belly and feeling the flood of energy course from the top of the head, down through the chest, through the arms, through the legs. Feeling the whole back side of the body release onto the support beneath you. Feeling that flood of energy as a pulsation or a tingling. Can you feel a sensation somewhere, or maybe nowhere? Whatever you experience is welcome and completely perfect. There's no wrong way to do the practice. And right now, there's no one to please, nothing to do, no one and nothing to accomplish right now. You're enough just resting here, and make any final wiggles and adjustments to your clothes, your blankets. You can snuggle a little bit more comfortable. Maybe you have something that's like anything, cover your eyes to block out any light from the screens or whatever's in your room. Covering the eyes is a great way to turn your attention inward. And then just turn your awareness to the breath now. Can you actually bring your attention to the tip of the nose and the space a couple inches beyond the nostrils where you're breathing in air? If your eyes aren't already closed, you can close them, or if you feel like you need to keep your eyes open for whatever reason, perfect. Make this practice yours. You're welcome to be just as you are, breathing in through the nose, imagining that spaciousness around you, breathing in slowly, filling the lungs. Follow that internal pathway of the breath. As you breathe in, imagine a coolness and a calmness spreading through the body, like a viscous liquid. Perhaps it might even feel good to imagine like an ice cube on the forehead. You breathe in and that coolness spreads throughout the skin, the external skin boundary, down the torso to the belly, the navel, all the way down the legs and the arms. And maybe internally you feel that cooling, viscous liquid. Perhaps it might even have a color. It slowly cools through the whole torso, the arms, the legs. Breathing in a coolness and a calmness. And as you exhale, as if to whisper to your own body, relax. Inhale coolness and calmness. Mentally whisper to your body, relax. Take that breath in and out once more. Feel the cooling, soothing sensation of the breath. And as you exhale again, feel all the cares and worries of the day flowing out of you, drifting away. Let go of all tension. Release the weight of the head, as if setting down something heavy. Release the head. Release the arms. Let them become heavy and limp, like a rag doll. And then let the legs become heavy and sink downward, as if the whole earth is holding you. The earth is rising up to hold you in this cocoon, feeling held, and allowing the body to release into it. Perhaps it might feel good to recall a time or a place where you felt secure and at ease. With all the senses open, what did that time look like? Who was there? Was it a special memory or an event where you felt secure and at ease? What did you hear? What did you see? Who was there? Was there a taste involved? Did it include a special type of food or drink, something that makes you feel even more secure and at ease? And just welcome that into your experience right now. And please know that at any point in your practice or in your day, you can always come back to this felt experience of security, ease, and well-being. And letting the memory fade away and allowing that feeling, though, to permeate into every cell, muscle, tissue, and organ of your whole being. Letting it wash through you like a nectar, nurturing your whole body, Feeling secure and at ease, a sense of well-being washes through you from the tips of the toes to the crown of the head. You welcome the senses to open. Notice the ears hearing sound. Not seeking sound, but letting the sound come to you. Just observing without analysis, noticing the outer ear receiving sound, the inner ear. All the sounds just coming and going. And just like sounds come and go, our thoughts come and go. And in this time, we witness the thoughts from a distance as an observer. So when a thought comes, observe it just like you would observe a cloud come and go. Do not engage it, but just simply notice how you can observe it like an object. And when that happens, let it go and reorient your attention to the practice. And with full attention, follow along and continue on. Noticing the sounds and then noticing the smell, or perhaps an absence of smell. Perhaps it might feel good to recall a fragrance that delights the senses, perhaps a flower or maybe a favorite food like a brownie cooking or something that you love to smell. Maybe it's a person you love. Breathing in that scent, breathing a little deeper and exhaling and let that scent course through you, letting it relax the body. And the same thing, go to the mouth now, full attention, undivided attention, as if you were to take all of your focused awareness on the tongue, the teeth, the ridge of the mouth, the soft palate, the throat, the open space of the mouth, the upper lip, the lower lip, the tip of the tongue, all of the mouth together, full attention. Notice and visualize the mouth, and simply, if it feels good to you, recall a taste that brings you comfort and fully experience it. Letting that sensation course through you, your taste buds open. And then allowing it to just dissolve and just noticing the tongue, the saliva or dryness, whatever's present. Noticing the breath from the nostrils, you're breathing in and it goes internally, noticing the belly rise as you inhale. And there's a very gentle softening of the belly as you exhale. Can you observe this? Inhale, belly rises. Exhale, belly softens, and with each exhale, the body releases deeper and deeper. Alert and attentive, making a commitment to stay aware, staying connected to the practice. Breathing, continuing on just like that. Focusing on the navel, visualizing it, the internal muscles, expanding and contracting, opening and softening, breathing effortlessly, letting go of all worries and tension. Now we will rotate our attention from different parts of the body. Simply visualize, sense, and feel each body part and mentally repeat it after I say it. Start at the feet, the soles of the feet, heels, ankles, tops of the feet, toes, the whole feet together. The whole feet, feeling sensation in the feet, calf muscles, back of the knees, hamstrings, glutes, low back, mid back, upper back and shoulders, upper arms, elbows, wrists, palm of the hands, back of the hands, all 10 fingertips radiant with sensation, the whole of the hands, the inner part of the elbows, upper arms and armpits, collarbones, and center of the collarbones, the throat, the jaw, lips, teeth, the whole of the mouth and cheeks, radiant sensation, the nose, the tip of the nose, the eyes resting back in their sockets, the forehead and scalp, the whole of the head as radiant sensation, the whole of the head, the neck, the throat, the pit of the throat, the center of the chest, the right side of the chest and the left side of the chest, the whole of the chest and belly together, the pelvis, the center of the pelvis, the hips, thighs, kneecaps, shins, top of the feet, bottom of the feet, all 10 toes, whole of the feet together, the whole of the lower body together, the whole of the upper body together, the whole body together, the whole body together, the whole body, a field of radiant sensation. Feeling spaciousness around the periphery of the body. Can you notice where the air is in contact with the skin on the right side of the body? Spaciousness. And then can you notice the air in contact with the skin on the left side of the body? Spaciousness. Can you feel the air in contact with the whole of the body? A sense of spaciousness, well-being and ease. Melting and merging into that felt sense. Welcoming sensation as a pulsation or tingling. Perhaps you feel it in fingertips or behind the skin. Perhaps the heart beating. The breath breathing itself. Feeling a sense of density in the body as you feel the bones sink downward. And then feel a sense of lightness and airiness in the body as you breathe effortlessly. Go back and forth between these two experiences of density, the bones, the structural feeling of heaviness in the body, to the spaciousness and lightness that is breathed in with every breath. Go back and forth, feeling both. Alternate twice more. Now feel both density and airy lightness simultaneously in one or many parts of the body. Release and let go. Focus on the natural ingoing and outgoing breath. And start counting the breaths backwards, focusing on the navel as it rises and falls. Mentally stating, I am breathing in 17. I am breathing out 17. I am breathing in 16. I am breathing out 16. I'm breathing in 15. I am breathing out 15, and so on. Continue counting the breaths backwards, 17 to 1. And if you lose your space or make a mistake, you must go back to 17 and start again. Continue on breathing and counting, counting and breathing. Now release the counting and just come back to that sense of ease and well-being, sense of security, and give yourself permission to just drop beneath the thinking mind into that feeling sense of well-being, letting it wash through you. Let go of all effort to make anything happen. And rest back as awareness itself. Witnessing everything that arises and dissolves. Just ease and well-being washing through you. And now, feeling the sense of revitalization, renewal, deep sense of groundedness in the body, peace and well-being. Just begin to shift your attention now as we prepare for the possibility of movement, turning your mind outside, beginning to gently wiggle your fingers and toes, feeling this renewed connection to the deepest part of yourself, feeling nurtured and whole and complete. Wiggle your fingers and toes, and when you feel ready, reach your arms above the head, stretching long, perhaps clasp your hands and press the palms of the hands away from you, just to reawaken and reemerge into the waking, alert state, and then bend the knees so the feet are flat on the floor. Taking your time, there's no rush. And then allow the knees to fall to the right side, letting the right arm be a bicep pillow. And just take a moment, just notice the shift that has happened here for you. Feeling renewed in your body, your mind, clear. Heart rate is slow, breath is slow. Perhaps you feel a little gratitude in your heart center for this time, this practice, this group. Gratitude for Florida firefighters and Michelle and everyone here. And then using your arms to press yourself up to seated, coming back to an alert and awake state. And then just rubbing the palms of the hands together, reawakening the arms. Feel that heat in the palms of the hands, and then put that heat right on the cheeks, taking one final deep breath in. And exhale, wipe the eyes, wipe the face with your fingertips and open your eyes. Congratulations on your first sleep recovery practice. I congratulate you. Please unmute yourself if you're awake and let us know how you feel.
That was awesome.
Yay! So you'll all sleep really well tonight because that practice lowers your stress hormones. So tonight you're gonna have better sleep, and people often ask, how do I remember that? Don't remember it, listen to the recording, okay? And this is recorded, so you'll be able to come back to it and practice it. And do you have any questions about what you experienced?
Where did Sean get that Snuggie?
We're loaded with all kinds of great things around here. Yeah, that's a good one.
Florida, some questions as it's approaching that 10:15 mark here on the Eastern Seaboard. Does anyone have any questions? Actually, you know what? I'm going to kick it off with one question. There was someone who talked about the kava tea that you were referencing and the concerns for first responders who have to drug test. Do you know anything about whether or not drinking kava tea would cause some sort of positive response in drug testing?
Only if there's someone here from Canada.
No.
You know, there's like 1 or 2 provinces in Canada that have restrictions on kava. Kava is not a restricted or controlled substance in any of the United States. It is advisable to maybe not do it on duty because it can have like a really relaxing effect. So that's more of a home use thing than an on duty thing. And it's probably the only thing we teach that I would say is something you don't do on duty, you just reserve for home. Everything else is on duty safe.
There is kava tea at any, regular grocery store, but if you want the tea that actually is rich in the compounds, find a place that actually sends you like ground up root, and use one of those little metal tea. You know what I'm talking about? I don't know the name of it. Just, it's a little bit more potent, and you'll feel an analgesic effect. Sometimes your mouth goes a little numb, but you can really feel like your muscles relax. But anyways, I was curious, did anybody do that practice seated? I think, John, you were seated for that.
Yeah, so I'm on duty right now, and I didn't participate in like the first half of it, but
That's okay.
then I picked up. It was really good. I was feeling like my joints unlock, and it was great. Yeah, I had a super bad headache, and I was just like rubbing my head for probably the first half of this whole lecture, and then now it's finally gone. So
yeah, that's
yeah.
awesome.
Are you recorded anywhere to where we could upload, download, whatever, something other than this recording when it becomes available?
Yeah, so I am a featured teacher on an app called Insight Timer, and it's a free app, and all of my recordings are free. So you can find, my name's Jacqueline Toomey. I'll type it into the thing, and you guys, that's a resource for you.
And I'll include a link too in the message to Michelle that's going to go out to everybody. So
that specific method I want to emphasize to you was ancient meditation called Yoga Nidra. Nidra means sleep in the yoga language. So you can tell it's, hopefully, like, I would love to see a hands. Was that easy? Hopefully it was easy. Yeah? Okay, great.
So yeah.
That's what makes it different from other relaxation, which sometimes you could listen to stuff that's on the internet. You're like, well, I'm not any like, this is a very effective, I've been studying it for 15 years. It's actual science, a nuanced thing. You guys don't have to worry about what goes into it, but just listen to a recording every day. Either when you wake up is actually a great time. If you don't feel like you got adequate sleep, amazing. Do it first thing in the morning or after lunch as a nap. Or if you wake up in the middle of the night, and whether you're at home or on shift, I have first responders that are like, I will listen after a call. I listen to you, I fall back asleep, and it's better than staring at the wall. So yeah, it's really effective. I'll type it into the group chat here.
So for the work environment, I do this. I do this 2 different times at work in the firehouse, and I do it in the afternoon. I do what's called a strict practice, and that would be like what I just did now, where I incorporate all of the stretches, all of the movements, lay down on my back with a bolster for my legs and a bolster for my neck, and I really actively try to like stay awake and really engage the practice. And then at night, I do a second practice, but I call that one more of like a relaxed practice, because I just put the recording on my phone with a sleep timer, and I get into bed like I would regularly go to bed, and I'm a little more quick to surrender to just falling asleep. So if my body wants to fall asleep during the recording, I don't fight it or resist it, and it's just kind of a tool to get back to sleep at the firehouse, at home, and especially after calls. And that's kind of how I differentiate the 2 forms of the practice. And in regards to like, how do we support each other as a first responder family, is giving space for that practice and recognizing that practice has a tremendous benefit that is a lot more achievable in our busy days than just taking a nap or just sleeping for an extended period of time after a busy night. So I think it's a lot easier for Jacqueline when I come home from a busy shift to say, hey, I can tell you probably got work last night. I know we got a lot of things to do today, but go take 45 minutes and do a sleep recovery practice. Or for me to communicate that to her and say, hey, I had a really busy night last night. I'm going to take 45 to go do a sleep recovery practice. And when I'm up, I'm all yours. And if you need to go take a break or rest and have me take over the house, you can go do a practice or go take care of yourself. And just having that communication and knowing how to like have space for rest and recovery and optimizing your sleep while not totally disrupting your whole day and not failing to recognize the specific needs of each other in the relationship and your responsibilities as a team.
And just to let you know, you guys, typically a practice, the guided Yoga Nidra meditation is 30 minutes or 40 minutes, but I do have a 10-minute recording called Nervous System Reset. And nervous system reset is that breathing we did, the Brahmari breathing. Did you guys feel good after that? I'd love to hear. Steve and Sandy are shaking your head yes. What did that feel like? I would love to hear your experience in that, because it's really powerful.
It's important to plug your ears, because otherwise you don't get all the vibration sensation. If I did the half ear, and I figured I'll just try and guess when you're done. So yeah, if you plug off all your ears, you totally get the full vibration.
How many ears you got?
Well, I mean, like completely plug them off. But no, I love that. And I feel like that is something I can do in my office when I'm like really stressed. So I work at a children's hospital in a cardiac ICU, and it's really stressful and stimulating with alarms all the time. But that is something where I feel like I could totally go in, because I try to meditate or be in my headspace, but my mind always wanders. And
Yeah.
that, like having the vibration and having the constant humming noise, I could stay focused in that.
Awesome.
Yeah, and that little 10-minute for your work environment, that little 10-minute nervous system reset could be amazing while you're working. You've only got so much time to utilize it. That could be really great.
Exactly.
There's a responder who he was at the tragic thing that happened at the DC mob, that it was that he lost a coworker there, and he says that he uses that humming breath technique whenever he's triggered, and it brings him down and has helped him heal from his post-traumatic stress symptoms. So it's really powerful. Don't underestimate the power of that breath technique, and doing it 7 breaths, reset. It's awesome. So thanks for sharing, Sandy. That's wonderful. And thanks for your work you do. That's amazing. Really amazing.
Yeah. I literally spent about 2 to 3 hours doing peer-to-peer support and fighting to get our nurses some kind of reprieve, because we have such sick and chronic kids. And so we had peer-to-peer chat today, and I've escalated it. But then it's like, okay, what are the tools going to be? How are we going to help everybody? And so I'd love to be able to point them, to your 10-minute reset thing. Because we have a Zen room, and so they could easily go in this Zen room and that, give them what to do.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. I want a Zen room.
Absolutely. And we'd love to talk to you too. So we do this training for first responders and most frontline workers. So nurses, emergency room staff, firefighters, police, ambulance technicians, anybody. So if it's something you would be interested in bringing out there too, we'd be more than happy to talk to you more. You guys are really awesome, because we kind of assume you guys are here on your own. So you're taking accountability for your health, and you're very open about your health. But when we do this class as like a department initiative, we spend a much greater amount of time exploring the anatomy and physiology connection, so that people, especially in the fire and police service, people who wouldn't normally be as open to a practice like this, really understand the physiological connection of how it all works in your body and what it's doing to improve your wellness. And I can say we've had some pretty tough audiences, and we've yet to walk away from one that wasn't that didn't have their mind changed or opened a little bit to the quality of this practice by the end. So we take great care to do that, in understanding not everybody's ready to just jump into something like this without explaining why it works and how it works.
I don't know. Is it true, Chief Herndon? Did I win him over at Iona McGregor? Is she asleep?
Yeah, I was half asleep myself. But what we know about the cons, that they are very caring people on both sides of that couch over there, taking care of the people that they lead and the people that they oversee. And so you couldn't have been more spot on with your assertion of that amazing family and the things that they do for frontline workers.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, before we all log off, did anyone else, John Fleming, do you have your hand raised?
I had one more. I had one more question for y'all. I had put it in the chat at the beginning, but some departments will put new hires or probies through sleep deprivation exercises. Do you recommend doing that and using it to reinforce the education that y'all are providing, or just provide the education and maybe hold off on trying to keep them up for 24 hours and making them act silly.
I don't know what kind of sleep they're
I think there's, in the short term, I think there's certainly a benefit to sleep deprivation awareness. Something like in the academy, like keeping the recruits up for an extended period of time and allowing them to see the impact that has on their cognition, on their decision making. Kind of feeling that, I'm sure we've all seen the studies that show after a certain number of hours, you actually start to behave as if you were drunk. There's a benefit to that, to understanding how much of a detriment that can have. And then pairing it with something like this so that you can have tools to overcome that detriment when you're experiencing it in real time would be an ideal way to do that.
You said that better than I could have.
Awesome. Amazing. Thank you for answering that. Are there any other questions that we can add this evening as we are still recording? If not, I will stop the recording.
I would love to hear.
I'm just gonna say one thing. I do go around and I talk and do different lectures, and I always talk about relationship building and stuff, within the fire service and culture. And I talk about the most important non-operational tool in the building being our dinner table. I'm going to start talking about the second most important non-operational tool is a pillow.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think you really brought it home. Every time I listen to something about the brain, I'm finding out something more and new about how resilient it is and how it actually grows and shrinks and all that stuff. And it's fascinating, and I can't wait to share some of the stuff with my people back at the station.
Oh, that's awesome. Thanks so much, Steve.
That's awesome. Yeah, the brain is incredible.
And so we just recently read a book that our therapist had recommended called The Upward Spiral by Alex Korb. And it's all about neuroplasticity. And it talks about all the parts of the brain, the amygdala, how it robs you of your prefrontal cortex and all that stuff, the transmitters and all that. It's a little overwhelming. So you just got to not focus on those little things. Just read through it. It makes you understand why you do the bad habits that you do, how that all came about in your life. And then the second half of the book is how to reverse all of those things. So it's spot on, like what you're talking about. And I think it just kind of having that background and then having your lecture really complement each other, because I really got it. I really understood it.
Oh, that's so awesome.
That's a great share. Thank you for sharing that.
We'll have to check that book.
Check out that book for sure. Yeah.
Oh, it makes it so easy to understand it.
If you could
We're always trying to learn.
a chance, Sandy, if you have a moment, that would be amazing.
Mm-hmm. Well, you all know we do our regular therapy, and this one is so stubborn, and he's just like, I don't understand how I stay stuck in square one. Like I feel like I get 2 steps forward and then 3 steps back or whatever. And, she has struggled to get through to him, or, and you got to keep saying it over and over. But she's like, you have to read this book. And then he had probably one of the biggest aha moments, and like, okay, I'm not crazy. This is why I do what I do. It's, we all know we shouldn't eat hamburgers and French fries, but there are emotional ties to food, and why you go back for that. It's not for the taste of the food. It's for the emotional pleasure in the brain to release the hormone and the neurotransmitters that you get from it. And so you have to reset your brain.
Yes.
So speaking of that, did you notice that when I guided you through some of the sensory things that you could actually taste or actually smell or have an effect in your body? It's you're activating different regions of the brain that access. And what we're doing with that, it's not just about the feel-good experience. This practice has actually been studied with the Department of Defense, with the military, and it's being used. Like, speaking of therapy, this practice, we sell it as a sleep practice, but it's really being used for post-traumatic stress healing at Walter Reed. It's actually a tier 1 pain and trauma treatment. And it's, if any of us, I mean, anyone who lived through the pandemic, we could all use a little extra support. This is a very powerful nonverbal experience that's body-based versus having to talk through something, which sometimes, I just did a post on social media today about how important bottom-up approaches are, where it's like healing starts with first calming the amygdala to get the prefrontal cortex back online. And that's why this any body-based somatic approach helps assist that, so that healing can happen. Because if you're just trying to talk about trauma when your body's tense, not going to work, right? So this is why I believe it was so effective. There was like 300 veterans who went through the study, and only one of them at the very end of the study qualified for any of the criteria of the DCM standards for post-traumatic stress symptoms. There was only one. They all healed their symptoms just from doing this, the practice you just did. I think it was once or twice a week for like a year or something. But anyways, that's the last thing I'll mention. I want to respect your time. So.
And real quickly, John Fleming wins comment of the day with his comment that I missed up there a little while ago. He said, Article 39, Section 1 Alpha of the new collective bargaining agreement, Theta Delta afternoon brainwave hour. Absolutely.
Yes.
That was good. That was really good. We'll hire you for the bargaining. But yeah, did anyone else want to, two of you haven't shared, did you want to just share your experience or any final comments or thoughts or anything? Or who's on video? I don't, some of you, if you're not on the video, I'm assuming you're asleep. So
So I got off shift this morning. I had about 3 hours of sleep last night. Woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning complaining about the bed. Actually went on Amazon, ordered a 2-inch foam topper for the bed with the cooling thing on top, because I'm tired of it. I'm just recovering. Just went back to work after 6 weeks after having surgery.
Wow.
So first night back was rough. We had 1 or 2 runs, but after 3 o'clock, I couldn't go back to sleep. So this is definitely going to be something. I just downloaded the app and followed you. So,
Oh, that's awesome.
And Amy's our daughter is she's a police officer. So
Wow.
now she's doing the 8-hour night tricks and stuff like that. So we're definitely going to be passing this on to her, so she can do some better recovery, because the sleep thing is huge.
Wow. Well, I hope that your recovery goes well, and this will assist with being able to.
Yeah, it definitely sleep. I don't get sleep at work, and the night before I go into work, I don't know if like anybody else, the other guys here, my night before work is not a restful sleep.
I hear
So
that.
Michelle's shaking her head, you're supposed to get that good 8 hours, but I'm getting 6 and it's restless and my mind's running and all that stuff. I'm actually tracking. I'm using a sleep app from the watch to watch what I'm doing with my REM and my deep and my light sleep. So,
well, that'll be fun too, is utilize that. You can utilize that with your watch when you practice the sleep recovery practice and see how effectively you're getting into those theta and delta brainwaves, or what probably the watch just quantifies as deep sleep. Should be reflected on your watch as well, which is really awesome.
You can send us a screenshot of your, if you can, or I don't know if it is connected to your app. We'd love to see how your sleep score is affected by this. Today I posted on our Instagram, like I had almost 2.5 hours of delta sleep last night, and I did a full, like this whole practice before I went to bed last night. And the nights that I do it, it's all my delta, which is, that's your growth hormone. That's your glymphatic system in your brain is detoxifying toxins. Like it's that time which is compromised so much. This practice.
So that'll be the deep sleep you'll see if you're in delta.
Okay. So I'd love to see a screenshot. If you practice this, let me know how it goes. It'll be good testimony.
Absolutely.
I hope the recovery goes well, John. Thanks for being here.
It is. It's just been long. It was nice to get back to work. Being out of work for 6 weeks was
that's tough.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And you, Mark, did you want to mention anything?
No, there's just phenomenal stuff being done with this. North Carolina Peer Support, Jay Betancourt is doing stuff. It's called the Resilient Mind Project, and they're actually teaching these kind of techniques in recruit schools and stuff. So they were doing like test subjects, one class versus another that taught those resilient mindfulness type practices and stuff. And they're showing a lot of benefits to it. So
Amazing.
good stuff being done.
That's super amazing. Super cool. Is that a behind the shield shirt you have on?
It is Behind the Shield.
I
Yeah.
love James. He's so great. Yeah. That's
James
cool.
is amazing. He does a lot of good stuff.
Absolutely.
Very cool.
It's a deep dive, but we're in his podcast pool somewhere. in
No,
there.
don't. It's so old. That was like 5 years ago.
I've probably heard it. I've heard just about
Okay.
it. I've been with him since the beginning. So James and
Oh,
I are pretty close. We talk
Oh.
quite a bit. So
Oh, that's awesome.
Amazing. And did you do the practice? Were you seated or did you do it laying down?
no, I laid down.
How did it feel for you?
It felt pretty good.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm on shift tomorrow, so it'll be good to see how I sleep tonight. So
Okay, good. Well, we will get out of your hair or no hair.
Your time and attention. And for everybody that made it to the end here, we're very, very grateful. Toomey's, we hope to welcome you back at some point in the future, but regardless, we're very grateful for the information and the opportunity to relax with you this evening and to be able to share this with our loved ones, to create clean sleeping habits at home. And we hope that everyone has a very blessed holiday season wherever the world takes you and whatever holiday it is that you subscribe to. Thanks for spending the evening with us and Bob Ross. And we will see you next year as we begin our third year
Congrats.
family and first responder education. So thanks for rounding off this year for us, Toomeys. I'm going to stop the recording and we will see everybody in the new year. Be safe out there.
Thanks, Michelle. You guys stay safe, be well.